お待たせいたしました。それではこれより基調講演を始めます。本日の基調講演の講師、堀江様は、1997年アメリカアーラム大学をご卒業後、2003年アマゾンにご入社。プログラムマネージャーとしてご尽力され、後にヤフージャパンやシックスアパート株式会社を経て、2009年に製品開発部長として PTX にご入社され、2011年にはクックパッド株式会社の国際事業部バイスプレジデントにご就任されるなど、多方面でご活躍され、その後2014年には GitHub にご入社。2015年6月にはジェネラルマネージャーとして GitHub ジャパンの設立に携わられ、現在はプログラムマネージャーとして活躍なさっています。次にご講演をいただきますエドワード・トムソン様は、GitHub Inc の Git インフラストラクチャーエンジニアとして世界最大のソースコードホストサービスのスケールアップサポートにご尽力されています。また GitHub、マイクロソフト、Apple などが利用していますオープンソースの Git ライブラリーの LibGit2 プロジェクトのコアコントリビューターとしても活躍なさっています。次に事例紹介、ご講演いただきます梅崎様は、2014年に日本経済新聞社にご入社。システムのマイクロサービス化やログ分析基盤、アンシブル、ドッカーでの環境設備などのデブオフィスを社内でご担当されており、検索 API や認可 API などの開発を行うなど活躍なさっています。本日はソーシャルコーディングと題してご講演をいただきます。それでは堀江様、エドワード様、梅崎様、よろしくお願いいたします。
Hello. おはようございます。よろしくお願いします。日本語はここまでなんですけど。I've been told this a few times over the past week, and it's true. I have a tendency to speak very fast in English or in Japanese, both. So I will try very hard to speak very slowly and clearly. And if I start speaking very fast, if you could just say, I love you, Dice, I'll slow down. All right? My name is Daisuke Horie. I'm here from GitHub. I'm joined by my colleague, Ed Thomson, also from GitHub, and Yuri Umezaki from Nihon Keizai Shimbun. We're here to talk to you about social coding. And I think you'll find a lot of the themes that we go over today are going to be very similar to what Max talked about yesterday in his keynote. And so hopefully we can re-emphasize some of the themes that he brought up or bring some new light or something more personal that you can connect to today. And I'll try to speak into the mic. So she just did an incredible job with my background, but I'm going to go over again anyway. Again, my name is Daisuke Horie. My username on Twitter and GitHub is Dice. Before joining GitHub, I worked at various internet companies as a product manager and a technical project manager. I joined GitHub in January 2014, and as a country manager, I opened GitHub Japan last year in 2015. Throughout my professional career, my passion has been working with customers. I find the most joy when I can talk to customers, hear their voice, and share that with engineers and other people in the team or in the company in order to build better products and services. And that's what a product manager is. And that's also what support at GitHub is. And so I joined the support organization in GitHub, and I am currently responsible for building the Japanese support structure, the Japanese language support structure at GitHub. And beyond that, I look forward to continuing to build the internationalization of support at GitHub. And so I've mentioned GitHub a few times. What is GitHub? please raise your hand if you have heard of GitHub before. Like 50%? 50, 30, 40, 50? That's pretty good. If it was 70, 80, 90, I was still going to try to introduce GitHub anyway because it's in my talk. GitHub is basically a social networking service. I think we've all heard about Facebook. On Facebook, we might share photos of our children or of lunch, or in this case, Tokyo Tower, with our friends and family. The simplest description of GitHub is that it is a social network for software developers. On GitHub, what is shared is software code. Software code is shared on GitHub, and other developers will make comments on that code. They also might make suggestions. They might edit the code. They might add code. They might even delete code. GitHub is a service where developers share software with each other, and then they work together. They collaborate. They cooperate in order to build better software. And ultimately, we ship software. And NASA actually uses GitHub. So in the case of NASA, they launch rocket ships. And that is what social coding is. Social coding is developing software in collaboration with other people. And that collaboration starts from the earliest stages of the development cycle. Not making software just by yourself and then sharing it when it's all done, but sharing software code that you are writing while you are writing it. Getting early feedback on the software code, making changes, making it better, and then shipping it out early. That is what social coding is. This type of development comes from open source software, where the collaborators are spread across the world, but they still work together to create software. And GitHub is a service for social coding. Social coding is a very simple concept, but it has already changed the world, and it continues to change the world. Today, I'll introduce the history of GitHub and social coding. Edward and Umezaki-san will talk about their own personal experiences of working at companies where social coding has had a tremendous impact. So the history of GitHub. These are the GitHub mascots. We've got stickers in the back. Please take them. Her name is Mona Lisa Octocat, and she likes to dress up in different outfits. These are not our founders. GitHub has 4 founders. The founders were all software engineers. The founders met in San Francisco, but they all worked in different companies. They got to know each other, and being software engineers, when they got together, they decided, let's build software together. But again, having jobs at different companies, it was not easy for them to work together to write software. And at the time, there's nothing available that made social coding easy. That just let them start doing social coding. So GitHub was started in 2008 by the founders in order to solve their own problem. From the beginning, GitHub was built by software engineers to make collaborative programming easy. Now, 8 years later, GitHub has grown. There are over 50 million registered users on GitHub, with over 38 million repositories. So what happened in those 8 years? How did GitHub grow? Well, many of the friends and acquaintances of the founders were also software developers. And they also had been looking for a service like GitHub that made collaborative programming, social coding easy. So by virtue of being in San Francisco, a hub of technology, GitHub spread quickly through word of mouth. I said earlier that social coding is the way that open source projects develop software. One of the early projects to move to GitHub was Ruby on Rails. The Rails account on GitHub was created in April of 2008. Now, other open source projects followed, and today a majority of the major open source projects have a presence on GitHub. But Ruby on Rails existed before GitHub. In fact, GitHub is built on Ruby on Rails. There are existing solutions being used by open source developers for their projects already. So why did these open source projects move to GitHub? Before GitHub, there are about as many different ways to submit code to an open source project as there were projects. Emails or designated subversion systems or servers were just a couple of these different ways. Each project was setting up their own website with their own way of social coding or contribution. But the lifeblood of open source projects is the participation of the community in the project. Building a community is not easy. Building a community while maintaining your own special dedicated platform for collaboration is even more difficult. Open source projects started moving to GitHub because they wanted to focus on making great software instead of losing time to building processes. As more and more open source projects moved to GitHub, a few key things happened. First, by virtue of being on GitHub, all these open source projects were incorporating the same workflow. What's often known, like a lot of these projects are using the GitHub flow as a workflow. Second, because of all the open source projects moving to GitHub, participating in an open source project became as easy as creating a GitHub account. Now, the lowering of barriers of entry to a project is a major benefit. In the past, in order to contribute to a project, it was often necessary to ask for permission at the beginning, to ask for permission first from the maintainers of a project. With GitHub, potential contributors can make their own copy of a project and then become comfortable in their own time, spend their own time learning the project, getting better with the project, and when they're ready, when they feel ready themselves to make a contribution to the project, that's when they can jump up and try to participate in that project. And this is what we want at GitHub. This is one of the biggest goals we have at GitHub and what we're trying to accomplish. We want to make it so anyone in the world can use open source software and contribute to open source software. This led to the growth of social coding and the number of developers and projects on GitHub. There have been and still are other source code repositories in the world. But the quickest way to success for any open source project in the world is to be able to build a community around it. Companies like Microsoft, Google, and Apple, they already had their own websites where they published their open source projects. They noticed something that other open source projects had already noticed. Rather than trying to get contributors to come to your own separate website and then build a community at this separate website, it is easier to grow an open source project if you bring your project to where the community already is. These companies recognize that. These companies recognize that there are already millions of developers on GitHub. So they chose GitHub as the place where they would share their open source projects. And this has been a tremendous success for these companies. So for example, there are now more contributions to .NET Core from the community than there are from Microsoft. .NET Core, like the center of Microsoft. But not all software projects are open source projects. GitHub also provides private repositories so that projects could be kept private. Individuals and organizations can work on projects privately and keep them private if it's a core business or it's part of their core service, or they could choose to make them open to the public later. So social coding works. Social coding is being used to develop and power things that each and every one of us in this room interact with on a daily basis. From my smartphone to big data projects, social coding has changed the world with open source software and has changed the way that companies develop software. Some companies have taken the proven workflows of social coding and open source software and are using that to change how they develop software internally. The word used to describe social coding inside a closed ecosystem or community is called inner source. Ed Thomson was in the thick of things at one of the largest software companies in the world as they went through their evolution towards inner source.
Thank you, Daisuke. Hello. My name is Edward Thomson. I'm a software engineer at GitHub. Before GitHub, I spent 6 years working at Microsoft. Could I see a show of hands if you've heard of Microsoft? Before Microsoft, I was at a company called TeamPrise. Can you keep your hand up if you've heard of TeamPrise? No, I didn't think so. If I may, I'd like to tell you a little bit about that company. TeamPrise was founded to build enterprise version control software. Microsoft had a product called Team Foundation Server. This was Microsoft's enterprise version control system to let other software developers collaborate building software. They built it for large companies and large code bases, like Windows and Office. What they didn't build was any functionality so that other enterprise customers could use it. If you were on Linux, if you were on Apple, if you wrote Java, Team Foundation Server didn't work. It was only Microsoft technologies. TeamPrise saw that hole in the market, and we built clients for enterprise platforms that weren't Microsoft. IBM AIX, Sun Solaris. And we had a plug-in to IBM's Rational Application Developer product. We did this, and we were a tiny little startup company, headquartered in a cornfield in central Illinois in the US. We were about 8 people, and only about 4 of those were developers. I can tell you, if you want to have 4 engineers building enterprise software, you have to take components off the shelf that already exist. You can't write all of the software yourselves, or, as Matt said yesterday, Kuroshi will result. At TeamPrise, we took a lot of open source software. We took as much as we could. There's no point in writing another Java logging framework. I promise you, there are enough already. And by using open source and adopting open source, we were very successful. We were in fact so successful that in 2009, Microsoft bought TeamPrise. If you've ever been acquired by a software company, let me tell you, the first thing that that company does is they audit your financial records. They go through your books, they make sure that you have revenue, that your founders aren't taking their family out for a vacation and charging it to the company, that there's nothing bad going on in the financials. The second thing they do is that they audit the software itself. We uploaded all our software to Microsoft. They looked through it all to make sure that it was of high quality and that we had written it all. The problem is we hadn't written it all. We relied heavily on open source software, and they were very surprised by this. In 2009, Microsoft still thought open source software was evil. The founder of Microsoft, Bill Gates, is on record as saying, there's this thing called the GPL, which we disagree with. Many open source software projects are available under the GPL. Steve Ballmer, who was then the CEO of Microsoft, has gone on record as saying Linux is a cancer. A cancer. So when Microsoft wanted to buy our company, they asked us to remove all of the open source software that we had used. They asked us to, what they called, remediate our product. And we told them we couldn't. There was simply too much. We relied on a variety of licenses, a variety of open source projects. Some of them we realized that we could, in fact, rewrite, but many of them we could not. We had 3 products at Team Prize. We had a command line client, so that when you were on an IBM mainframe, you could run this command line client and talk to Microsoft Team Foundation Server. We had a plugin to the Eclipse IDE, which is used by Java developers. And we had a standalone GUI client. That GUI client was actually written on top of the Eclipse IDE. And so it used many, many open source components from Eclipse. It used so many, in fact, that we simply couldn't evaluate how many there were. There were too many to count. And because there were so many, we had to stop selling this entire product. So when Microsoft acquired us, we went from 3 products down to 2, just because they were worried about the open source. But Microsoft did acquire us, and our customers were happy. But what they weren't happy about was Team Foundation Server's version control. Again, it was built for enterprise customers, Windows, Office, Boeing, giant companies with giant source code repositories. A typical customer who had a much smaller source code repository hated using Team Foundation Server because it was so complex. This is just a sample of quotes that I found on the internet, just Googling Team Foundation Server. The last one is particularly painful to read. It was written by a gentleman named Brandon Bloom. It's sad because he was a Microsoft employee when he wrote this. We couldn't even get our own employees happy about this software. People on the internet jokingly called it Team Frustration Server. What our customers wanted was Git. They'd seen GitHub, they'd seen social coding, and they loved it. So we endeavored to bring Git to Microsoft customers. The problem with Git is that it's an open source product. It was written by Linus Torvalds, and if that name sounds familiar, it's because he wrote the Linux kernel, the same Linux kernel that Steve Ballmer called a cancer. And it was available under the GPL, which is the software license that Bill Gates says that he disagrees with. So this was very complicated for us. We wanted to bring Git, but we had a lot of convincing to do. We had to convince our coworkers. Now, at this time, Microsoft really didn't understand open source. My coworkers believed that anybody on the internet could check in malicious code to Git. Maybe they checked in something to format your hard drive. And then in Visual Studio, we would ship that to all of our customers, and all of their hard drives would be formatted. Now, of course, this isn't the way that open source works. In fact, all software is peer-reviewed. It's code-reviewed. And in fact, to be honest with you, the open source projects that I've worked on have a much, much higher barrier to entry than the commercial proprietary products that I've worked on. The code quality is generally higher. But we convinced our coworkers. The next people we had to convince were the lawyers, the same lawyers that we had problems convincing to buy our company in the first place. But we had a new lawyer suddenly. And we sat down with him, and we tried to steamroll the conversation. My team did. We wanted to tell him all about the GPL and Git and the software licenses and how we thought that we could do this responsibly and not risk any Microsoft assets. And we didn't even let him talk. We just hammered him with fact after fact, and every time he would try to interrupt, we would just keep going. And finally, we stopped. And he looked at us, kind of exasperated. And he said, "Well, you've given me a lot to think about. But I think this is a great idea because for my open source projects that I write in my spare time, I use GitHub. And I would love to be able to use Microsoft tools to talk to GitHub." Our lawyer wrote code in his spare time. He actually had an engineering degree from MIT. We had no idea. So he was so supportive. We were so happy about that. And so we got a plan, and we took it to our senior management. And when I say senior management, what I actually mean is Steve Ballmer. Steve Ballmer, who's gone on record saying that open source shows the characteristics of communism. And I wasn't in this meeting. I wish I had been. But Steve Ballmer was very hard to convince. He doesn't like open source. He doesn't like Linux. But what he does like is developers. I don't know if you've seen this clip. This is Steve Ballmer at a developer conference. Developers. Now, Steve gets a little excited about developers. Now, it's easy to laugh at Steve Ballmer. He's very excited, and he's very sweaty. But he's also very passionate, and he truly means this. He knows that building an ecosystem for developers is good for Microsoft. So he signed off on it. He allowed us to put Git into Visual Studio. And in 2013, we released that. And our customers were finally happy. That was great, but that was just the beginning. In 2015, the product manager that put Git into Visual Studio and our lawyer teamed up and decided to, instead of just use open source, we decided to release open source. And in 2015, Microsoft began publishing the source code for a number of its tools. .NET Core, TypeScript, Xamarin. They open sourced all of these things. They put it on GitHub, and they allowed the world to see it. Social coding. And they started contributing to open source projects as well, even products that are competing with Microsoft in some other areas, like Linux, Ubuntu. And by doing this, Microsoft became one of the leading open source companies. This is organizations with the most number of open source contributors on GitHub. Microsoft leads. And as Daisuke said, they're now accepting more contributions from outside of Microsoft than from Microsoft employees in .NET Core. So this is quite a turnaround from a company that just a few short years earlier refused to even use open source software. They saw the benefits of social coding, and they embraced it. In 2016, Microsoft started looking at something called inner source. They started opening up their development that went on internally. They started doing social coding internally, what they called internal open source and what GitHub calls inner source. Open source goes corporate. Before this, Microsoft existed in silos, we called them. Every organization was separate. The Windows team was completely different than the Office team, was completely different than the Visual Studio team. Now, Windows uses Visual Studio. They need to compile Windows, so they use the compiler from Visual Studio. What happens when they find a problem in the compiler? They ignore it. They find a version of the compiler that worked for them, and they stick to that. If you're lucky, somebody on the Windows team tells the Visual Studio team about this bug, but don't count on it. Visual Studio team, of course, needs Windows. Visual Studio runs on Windows, and they barely talk to each other. Somebody jokingly drew an org chart of Microsoft as a bunch of separate organizations all holding each other ransom, pointing guns at each other. Having worked there, I can tell you it's actually not far from the truth. That's certainly how it felt when I was there. On my team, even within Visual Studio, we had communication problems. I worked on a little piece of Visual Studio that was the Git library management. A number of people within Visual Studio used my software. It was used by CodeLens, Team Explorer, Azure Web Publishing. And whenever I made a change to my library, I had to coordinate with everybody who used it. I had to tell them, it's time for you to update. And we had to all do it simultaneously. Otherwise, we would break the build, and Visual Studio simply wouldn't work. It was a lot to manage, and I spent more time coordinating this than I actually spent writing software. If we adopted a social coding model, I could make the changes to my library and make the changes to everybody who used it. Send them pull requests, ask for their feedback, and I could make the changes myself. Much, much more efficient, much faster, and frankly, everybody's happier. So finally, Microsoft adopted this model of social coding. Now, at Microsoft, all of the source code is public within the company. If you're on the Windows team, you can now see Visual Studio, all the source, and vice versa. It's all hosted in Git, and everybody accepts pull requests. Let me give you an example. The Office team uses Visual Studio for its build system. And they've started supporting Android and iOS. They needed a new feature in that build system to allow them to sign the code. So, unfortunately, the Visual Studio team, this wasn't on their radar. It wasn't on their timeline. They had no interest in this feature. But the Office team did. So they wrote it themselves and sent a pull request. They asked them to merge this code into Visual Studio, and they did. So now Visual Studio offers this functionality to everyone. When you install Visual Studio, you can now sign Android and iOS builds. That's the power of social coding. It's getting features that you need into products, even when the people managing those products don't necessarily prioritize that. So that's inner source at Microsoft, but it's not just happening there. I'd like to invite Daisuke back up onto the stage to talk a little bit more about that. Thank you so much.
You have the clicker? Yeah, thanks. And I'm back. So Ed shared Microsoft's story with us. Microsoft is, of course, one of the leading technology companies in the world. So it might seem inevitable that a software company thrives to be at the cutting edge of software development practices. As in, Microsoft's story isn't my story, because we're not Microsoft. But I'd like to talk a little bit about what a software company is. So Mark Andreessen said in 2011 that software is eating the world. Software is affecting everything in the world. Software development and the rise of social coding is affecting a lot more than just technology companies like Microsoft. So around the world, companies like Uber. Does everyone know Uber? Or a lot of you know Uber? Yeah? And Airbnb. They're in the news in Japan a lot. But around the world, companies like Uber and Airbnb that are based on software are changing the taxi and hotel industries. A company like Netflix has crushed physical rental video stores in the United States. There are no tsutayas in the United States. Why? Because they all got crushed by Netflix. And Netflix is now creating their own content to compete with the television industry. And it all started with software, with Netflix. Even in Japan, we have companies like Tabelog, Ikkyu, Cookpad, and others that are affecting the food and travel industries. And car companies. Car companies all over the world are making software now to increase the safety of driving. And recently, you know, what's the rage in the news? It's about self-driving cars. We talk about self-driving cars all the time. And that's all software. So what this means is that today, every company is a software company. Software is changing the world. Companies have started to develop software in order to survive. Just like companies have a legal department, a human resources department, marketing department, companies either have or will have software departments. Software development is becoming an essential and internal component for companies. So let's take a look at the organizations and companies that are incorporating social coding. So Hadoop is a great example of how social coding has changed software development. Hadoop is used for the distributed storage and processing of big data. And before social coding, Hadoop would have been built behind closed doors by dozens of PhDs in a company like Microsoft, SAP, or some other huge company. With social coding, Hadoop is being built by a community of users. Hundreds of people from around the world are contributing to Hadoop every day. And of course, we all know the story of Ruby. Right? Ruby was starting it as a hobby project, and now it's running, it's a huge community and used by thousands of companies around the world. These technologies being built through social coding, these open source technologies, are being used by all sorts of companies and organizations around the world. The accelerating innovations that we see around us every day, day to day, these things would not be happening without social coding. Then we have the technology companies in the world. These companies are participating in social coding by both contributing to open source and bringing open source into their organizations so that inner source can accelerate the speed of their innovation. And that was all what Ed's talk was about. They're finding social coding essential to keep pace within their own industries. And then we have companies that have made software development part of their core competencies. So on the far right, Ford. Ford is an automobile company. Walmart is a retail company, right? Bloomberg is a media company. John Deere in the upper right-hand corner, you know what they make? They make tractors. But they're all also software companies. In fact, John Deere, and I might get this number wrong, so pretend like you never heard this, they either have hundreds or thousands of developers. These are all also software companies. And as you may know, Nikkei. Nikkei is the largest financial newspaper in the world and one of the largest paper newspaper companies in Japan. They are also a software company. And so we have Umezaki-san here to talk about Nikkei's transformation.
はい、紹介に預かりました日本経済新聞社の梅崎です。ここからは日本語で失礼させていただきます。はい、私は日本経済新聞社のデジタル編成局編成部という部署で働いております。この部署は社内におけるデジタルに関連するサービスの企画や電子版の運用をしている部署になります。私はその部署で、検索 API の開発でしたり、エラスティックビーンストーク AWS を使ったインフラの構築、あとはエラスティックサーチを使ったログの分析、これはアクセスログをもとにどのエンドポイントが遅くなっているかというのを解析してサービスの改善であったり、不都合の回収とかそういったことを普段業務で行っております。GitHub はあまりオープンソースでは公開していないんですが、フルエント D のプラグインを一部公開してたりしています。日本経済新聞について、日本経済新聞は1876年に創刊した中外物価新報を前身とする経済新聞です。今年ちょうど来月で140周年を迎える歴史がありまして、今、約280万部と世界最大規模の発行部数を誇る経済新聞となっております。日本経済新聞電子版は2010年3月から開始しているウェブの有料経済ニュースサービスです。月におよそ3億件のページビューがありまして、サーバーには秒間1万件以上のリクエストが来ています。毎日およそ900件の記事を公開しておりまして、PC、モバイルのウェブサービスであったりですとか、iOS、Android のアプリ、紙面ビューアー等を提供しております。ソーシャルコーディングの話の前に、まず、メディアについて軽くお話しさせてください。メディアにおける価値というと、よくコンテンツがメイン、コンテンツだけだと思われることがあります。しかし、そもそもメディアという単語の意味としては、コンテンツ媒体であって、コンテンツが載っている器のことです。つまりデジタルにおいては、ソフトウェアそのものがメディアになります。つまりメディアにおける価値をソフトウェアが担っていると言えるのです。特にユーザーが接するフロントサービスでは、各、媒体ごとに独自に磨き上げるべき部分ですので、デジタルとして価値を持つためには PDCA を回して回収し続ける必要があります。これまで日系のサイトの開発は全て外注でした。しかしそのような大事なものを外部に任せるのはロスとも言えるかもしれません。 例えば新聞社において記者の仕事を全て外注しているかというとそういうわけではないと思います。競争力を持つべくメディア表現及びその開発部分で技術のノウハウが社内にたまらないというのは大きな問題です。例えば方式にもよると思いますが、過去の外注では発注書の作成に手続きが多かったりコミュニケーションのコストが大きかったりしてちょっとした回収でもかなりの時間がかかっていました。この右側のアプリの図ですと右下のところにあるシェアボタンをちょこっと増やすだけで、2週間かかったりしていました。また新規の開発では、最初一気に動かすことを目的に作るため継続的な開発でしたり運用が考慮されていない部分が多く、人手のコストを後での回収をしようとするとテストの工数が増えてしまうため、機能の追加ができないといったこともありました。これらを回収するためには開発と運用をうまくつなげてあげる必要があります。内製とソーシャルコーディングの活用はこれらの問題解決に対して有効です。それはコードを交えたコミュニケーションが重要であるということはもう GitHub 上のオープンソースプロジェクトを見ていると明白でした。ただ社内でいきなり内製化をすることはできませんでした。電子版以降の内製化は5年ほど前にまず2人で始めました。最初はモバイルサービスという本来の業務 PC 版ではないサイドプロジェクトとして立ち上げられています。まずは社内で作ってできることを示しました。私はその頃アルバイトとして入って3人目の内製化のメンバーになります。開発する上でソースコードの開発が必要となって GitHub をその頃から利用するようになりました。その後部署で内製化が進みましてエンジニアの数も増えました。内製化が進むにつれてこれは変化したというよりも意図して変えたことになりますが、これまでは外注を前提として1人が社員は兼業で複数のプロジェクトにアサインする形をとっていたんですが、内製化に伴いましてミッション単位で数人でチームを組む形に変化しました。具体的に言いますと iOS チーム、PC 版チーム、検索基盤チームという形でしたり、各チームで席替えをしてチームごとに小さくまとまるようなところにしたり、チームに TOJ 組とかレッドアロー組とかつけてみたりですとか、各チームごとに朝会、KPT、また101マネージャーとやったりとか、そういうことをするようにして、各チームごとに知見がたまりやすくなるような仕組みを作りました。このような変化がここ 4,5 年であり、現在はコードが書ける社員が十数人くらいにまで増えています。これは内製で作ったプロダクトの例です。右上の GitHub のコミットの図は iOS の紙面ビューアーアプリのコミットの状況です。紙面ビューアーはバックエンドも含めて2人の社員が全て書いて作成しています。左下のようにアーキテクチャについても最近よく資料を上げたりしています。内製化の効果について、右下は電子版アプリなんですが、内製化するようになりまして電子版アプリの月間アクティブユーザー数 MAU は 1.9 倍に増えています。また、施策による影響もあると思うんですが、アプリのスターの数も結構評価が悪かったものがだいぶ4ぐらいまで良くなっています。開発パターンは、社員だけの内製によるものではありません。内製や請負型の発注以外にも開発パターンが増えてきています。また外部の人に対する外部の人との依頼の仕方も変わってきています。一つは、社員が開発してレビューを外に依頼するケースです。レビューを外に依頼することで社内だけで開発していると内部で書き方が偏ってしまう、血が濃くなるといいますか、そういうのを防ぐ効果がありまして、デザインやコーディングのレビューやサポートを一部のシステムでは依頼したりしています。社員だけではもちろん全ての開発ができるわけではないので外部の開発も必要です。外部が開発して社員がレビューするケースというのも結構増えておりまして、ワークインプログレス後で説明しますが、自分たちでなくても、自分たちごとと捉えられるような形で、協力会社の人と開発できる形を考えて進めています。常駐の方、外部の SE の方による開発や運用では実は今まで、日付単位でファイルを 名前つけて更新したりですとか、リフを紙に印刷して社員が差分をチェックしてデプロイを見届けるっていうような作業スタイルだったんですが、GitHub のプルリクエスト上でのレビューやマージ、自動デプロイをすることで完結するようになりました。今まではわずかな修正があるだけでやり取りが一気に増えてミスが起こりやすかったんですが、そういった課題を GitHub が解決してくれました。ここまではだいたい GitHub に移行した例なんですが、受け型の外注もまだ残っています。ただそれもコードを GitHub 上で納品するような形に変わっているところも増えてきました。ソーシャルコーディング、GitHub を使うことで大きな変化の一つはレビューの単位です。GitHub を使うことでこまめに非同期でレビューをすることができるようになりました。この図は、Slack でのやり取りと GitHub のレビューのやり取りを出しているんですが、Slack 上でちょっと書いたので、見てもらっていいですかって言ったら後で見ますみたいな話があって、その後コードのレビューをしているっていう、コードを見ながらここはこうした方がいいんじゃないかみたいな話をしています。こういうちょっとした作成や変更でも、すぐに、お願いをして見られるような状態にして後でいつでも確認できるようにするっていうのが簡単に GitHub 上だと行えます。先ほどのワークインプログレスですと、さっきのはもうすでにコードがあって、その上でやり取りをするっていう形だったんですが、まずコードを書く前に、どういうことをするかっていうトゥードゥリストを先に作成してそこにコードを書いていくっていうようなスタイルを示しています。ワークフローですね。最初に作業内容を書くことで、仕事の内容の明確化や早い段階での方向修正ができるようになっています。例えば、これは別のところで対応した方が運用も楽になりそうとかですとか、ここはやろうとしていると同じようなことが別のところでもすでにやってあるのでそれを参考にしてくださいみたいな、コミュニケーションがソースコード、トゥードゥリストを見ながらやり取りできるようになっています。開発する側も書きながら気になることがあれば気軽に質問を投げかけることができるようになっていまして、テストの書いたりですか、やり取りがスムーズになっています。外部と連携して開発する場合もこういうことをすることで仕様の誤認などが早い段階で分かるため、手戻りや修正コストを避けて品質を上げることができました。ちなみにこのやり取り自体はインフラを AWS に移行する際に書いた Ansible のコードのプルリクエストです。サーバーもコードで管理できるようになったっていうのは最近変化の大きな一つです。こちらはコンサルタントの方にチケットをいただいて社員と、進捗やコードの品質を、こういう方針でいいかみたいなのをレビューしながらすぐに反映できるような形で作成しました。もちろんこういう双方のやり取りは、特に発注側が高圧的な態度を取ってしまうとレビューされたくないと感じてプレリクエストを作らなくなったりですとか、あんまりこういうモデルが成り立たないので、お互いの信頼関係が成り立つようにレビューの文面とかは注意するようにしています。そういう当事者意識の変化っていうのが大事ですし、 GitHub プルリクエストベースの開発によって変わってきました。まずレビューがあることでテストを先に書くといった文化の変化がありました。テストを書くことで後々の変更が容易になります。また、GitHub 上でやることで、なぜそういう設定になっているかというのが簡単に見れるようになりました。開発者と運用者で、違う人が、行う場合、バグなのか仕様なのかを確認するために大量の Excel のブックを見たりですとか、開発ソースコード単位じゃなくてプログラムとして納品された場合は元の開発者に連絡してどうしてそうなっているのかっていうのを確認する必要がありました。ソースコードの検索ですとか当時のイシューでどういうやり取りがあったかっていうのを簡単に確認することができるようになったので、多くの場合の問題点を解決したり共通で発生する修正が出たときに、一括で修正することができるようになりました。学生から見た、企業に対する見え方も変わってきているのかなと思います。実は私は日経に入って3年目なのですが、日経に入ったのは学生の時に、日経だと先進的な開発ができるだろうと感じたからです。 これまでウェブとか開発をしたい学生はウェブのベンチャー企業ですとか、とりあえず SIR に入るといった選択をしてきましたが、データやユーザーを抱えている会社で、開発や研究など、大学の時に養った力を発揮したいと考えている人が出てるんじゃないかなと思ってます。日経では新卒も率先して開発しておりまして、採用も兼ねて若手が外部で発表する機会も増えてきています。このように、ビジネスにおけるソフトウェアの需要では増してきています。社内でのソーシャルコーディングはまだ私の部署に閉じていますが、今後はデジタルの部署だけではなくて、社内インフラや販売など、どんどん広がっていくんじゃないかなと感じています。開発者は考え方として技術やツールの方向に偏りがちです。これは注意しないといけないんですが、ちゃんとビジネスゴールを意識して開発していくことが大事です。我々は今後データも活用しつつ、ビジネスへの成果に結びつけていこうと考えております。ありがとうございました。
Thank you, Umezaki-san. So I hope that everyone here and those watching over YouTube, hearing Ed's talk, Umezaki-san's talk, and my talk, I hope we were able to make it clear that software development through social coding is changing the world, and it's affecting us all. And so I encourage everyone in this room to consider how social coding can have an impact on your organization, and also what the possibilities of social coding are. So we have a Q&A after this, but before we go there, I'd like to thank some people. So I'd like to thank the prefecture of Shimane, the city of Matsue, all of the organizers to this incredible event, for this incredible opportunity for us to visit and talk to all of you about this, and also to see this just amazingly beautiful place. And of course, the translators who just did an incredible job dual translating. And I'm saying this right now because this isn't in the notes, what I'm about to say. I also like to thank Mats. There's a little bit of a personal story about myself. And so we went over my history a bit in the beginning. I was a product manager and project manager in the internet industry since 1999. I didn't know how to write code. I could not develop. I was lucky, though, because I worked with amazing developers. But I always felt that the one thing that kept me, that last connection of understanding how to work with them, understanding the issues that they were going through, especially when I was managing them, was the barrier was that I didn't know how to code. So 5 years ago, when I was at a company called CookPad, my team was like, just learn. I was like, okay, I'll learn. And I tried many times before, PHP and Python and all these things, and I failed every single time. I started doing Rails, and what do you know? I learned how to write an application in Rails. It happened. It worked. And I think Emma yesterday shared a very similar story about how she studied, and now she's out there just slaying the world. Those are two stories, but they're not rare stories. I've got 1 minute, and I started my own company. I sold that company. I ended up at GitHub, and through it all, I've just really been touched by this community that Matt was talking about yesterday around Rails, around Ruby, around all these open source projects. Social coding, it's really social. It's all of us supporting each other to make better software. And it's an amazing thing. And if you're interested, there's many ways for you to get started. For example, on March 3rd and March 4th, in your city of Matsue, Rails Girls is going to be having Rails Girls Matsue, right? March 3rd and March 4th. And that's just one event. There are all these events around the world where around Japan, not just in Tokyo, you don't have to be in Tokyo, all around Japan, where you can really learn how to code. It's very hard to become a software engineer. It's very, well, it's not easy. It's a lot easier to become a software developer. And I would encourage you to at least try it out. And that's why I want to thank Matt for making this all possible with his hobby programming language of Ruby. The founders of GitHub wanted to program with Ruby, and that's how GitHub got started. And so a big thanks to Matt, and again, a big thank you to everyone here for listening to our talk. I know there's a Q&A session after this, but we will also be around today. If you have any questions, please feel free to come up to us and ask us anything. Thank you very much.
ありがとうございました。それではここで、質問のコーナーと入らせていただきたいと思います。何かご質問のある方いらっしゃいましたら手をお挙げください。はい、今マイクをお持ちいたします。
エドワードさんに質問なんですけれどオフィスのチームのメンバーがビジュアルスタジオのソースコードを開発するという話をすごく興味がありました。で、それに関して2つ質問なのですが、まず1つがですね、オフィスのメンバーが当然ビジュアルスタジオのコードを開発するとなると、その詳細まで当然全部理解しているわけではない状態で開発しないといけないと思うのですが、その、リクエストを取り込む際に、どういった、レビューとかすると思うんですけれど、そのソースコードを取り込む前にどういったルールでチェックするっていう、そのルールがまずふうになっているのかっていうのが一つです。でもう一つの質問が
So that's a great question.
そうでもう一つですね、すみません。ビジュアルスタジオのチームがですね、忙しくて、対応できないで、優先度も多分他の例えばさっきの話ですと、アップルのやつの iPhone とかの対応が必要ないと思えばどうしても優先度が低くなってリクエストが来ても放置されてしまうと思うんですけれど、そういった時にどういうふうにうまくコーディネートするのかっていう2点をちょっと教えていただければと思います。お願いします。
Another great question. So, sorry, going back to your first question, I'm trying to remember. Let me attack your second question first, and that way I can refresh my memory about what your first question was. I'm sorry. So regarding prioritization, at Microsoft, at least on my team, we went under a transformation. We started waterfall and we went to agile. So as far as prioritization went, we got feedback from customers, and we filled out backlog items, and we, like an agile organization, we prioritized them based on the customer input, and we pulled each one of them off by order of priority, and everybody just tackled whichever item was the highest priority. I think Agile is a great workflow. There's a number of great planning tools to help you, Waffle or actually I can't think of any off the top of my head except Waffle. But so I would encourage an Agile or a Scrum sort of a workflow. Going back to your first question, it was, and I think Umezaki-san touched on this as well, and I know Desuke did, there's less asking for permission now. Now that the code is open, there's not necessarily someone you need to ask before you get started, if I understood your question correctly. Now if you have as the open source saying goes, if you have an itch, you can scratch it. You can go get the code. You can look at it. If you have questions, and often, Office is a huge product. Visual Studio is a huge product. They've been written over many years. There's sometimes deadlines come up and you have to get code in quickly, so it's not always the best code. So there's always a question and answer. You can ask questions. That's part of the social part of social coding. You can ask questions, open issues. But ultimately, you send up a pull request, and that's it. You start working on discussing the code when it's ready to go, in many cases.
ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。他にご質問がございますでしょうか。よろしいでしょうか。はい、そうしましたらまた、後ほどご質問のある方いらっしゃいましたら個別に、ご相談いただけたらと思います。じゃあちょっと私一つ質問してもよろしいでしょうか。エドワさんのこの胸にも、はい、GitHub の、ね、マスコットキャラクターの、オクトキャット、ね、ついてますけれども、だからこのオクトキャットはなぜタコの足の猫ちゃんになったかといったら、猫がサンゴを食べたからっていう話をちょっと聞いたことがあるんですけど、それは本当ですか？
はい。
サンゴを食べたのでまあ普通はね食べないだろうサンゴを食べたということなんですけど、これは何か取り入れたことで大きな変化が起きるという、なんかそういう意味があるんでしょうか？
The story came afterwards. What initially happened was, so when there's a page that you're looking for on GitHub and it doesn't show up, or any service, we all know what a 404 page, 404, 401 page is. And so early on in GitHub's history, the founders wanted to show something that was a little bit kinder than just a normal 404 page that said, sorry, we don't have what you're looking for. So one of our founders went searching online and found the Octocat and decided to use the Octocat as the logo on that page, on the page where we can't find what you're looking for. And then one of our lead developers early on, his daughter, came up with all the stories behind Mona Lisa Octocat. She came up with a name, and she came up with a story about how Mona Lisa ate coral and became how she is now.
ね、その娘さんもすごいですね、アイディアが。はい、でもこれ、このオクトキャットもいろんなバージョンが、ね、出てきているようでして、今日は先ほどね堀江様からもご紹介がありましたけれども、この幹事長の後ろの、スポンサー様の広報物配布コーナーのところでもいろんなステッカーが、ね、置いてありますので、ぜひお持ち帰りいただければと思います。堀江様がね素晴らしい、このカンファレンスというふうに言ってくださいましたけれども、そういった素晴らしいカンファレンスになるのも参加してくださった皆様方がまた素晴らしく、そしてご講演いただく講演者の皆様が素晴らしいからだと本当に思います。ご講演いただきました堀江様、エドワード様、梅崎様にどうぞ大きな拍手をお送りください。ありがとうございました。